Joining us now, Gurdeep Singh Sappal of the Congress Party, Dr. Guru Prakash Paswan of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Nirja Chaudhary, the senior editor, and Dr. Mohammad Amin, who was with the Election Commission of India. In fact, Dr. Amin, let me come to you first. What happens if a state government collapses or if the centre collapses and the state government wants stability?
This is not first time in the history of the Election Commission. Since 1951-52 until 1964, 64, 67, this was continuous process for the election. So both the houses, means state and the central, both were elected by the people of the country. So in this regard, I can say we can honor this cabinet decision. This is a good decision for the country.
No, but what happens if a state government or the centre falls? How does one prevent instability in one or the other?
They have the provision for that. So if there is a election after the 2 years, so then they remain for 3 years, they are going to repoll for that state. But the process will be the same.
All right.
And they cut down the expenditure in the country, like the electoral. We have the complete electoral, not a municipal corporation, not a block pramukh, and not a assembly and a parliament. All the electoral will be simplified. Only one electoral will be in the country. Like if the one person is living in the Noida and one is living in the Delhi, so they have the two.
No, I
ID
understand
cards.
that. I wanted to get clarity on, what happens if there is, and it happens all the time, instability, a state government collapses or the central government collapses, then what happens? And you're saying that there is a provision in place to deal with that scenario. But let me go across to Gurdeep Singh Sappal. Do you believe that the measures in place to ensure that instability is avoided in the system is guaranteed, particularly if there is a problem in a state government or an assembly needs to be dissolved or the centre needs to be dissolved? What happens then?
Vishnu, first I'll begin by responding to your statement. You said that it is good that let's get over with the elections and get on with the governance. Look, elections are not a forced condition on democracy. They are the basis of democracy. Let us not view elections as something which is undesirable. Now coming to the actual question, there are three issues. One is the issue of practicality. Other is the issue of constitutionality. And third is technicality. Practicality, as you said, suppose we forget about the state governments right now. If the centre collapses, will the Prime Minister lose the power to dissolve the parliament? If he loses the power to dissolve the parliament, who takes charge? Is it the president? Are we introducing a quasi-presidential form of government, which is changing the basic structure of the constitution? Are we saying that, okay, once or twice we have a provision, but more than that, the Prime Minister will not have a power to dissolve the Lok Sabha? This is not the democracy that is structured in our constitution. The Prime Minister will necessarily have the power to go for election as and when he may desire or his cabinet may desire. And if he cannot decide that, that power will be transferred to somebody else, which is not constitutional. Second part is technicality. This requires two-thirds majority. BJP does not have two-thirds majority in Lok Sabha. It does not have two-thirds majority in Rajya Sabha. And it also requires ratification by two-thirds of the states. And it does not have governments in two-thirds of the states. So how can BJP get it passed? There is no way that BJP will be able to get it passed in the current configuration. So it is only a balloon being floated to divert. It is not a real exercise by BJP. It's a balloon being floated to divert during the election where BJP is faring very badly.
Okay, Mr. Sappal, half a second. You made some important points. Dr. Paswan, respond to that. And I have one more question.
No, I'll just mention one thing about the cost. In 2014, 19 figures have not been made public. In 2014, near about 3,800 crores were spent on the Lok Sabha election. Now, BJP itself raised 10,000 crore. That's how much 38 crores is. And sometimes I may say, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi was also making this point. Lawyers like him, the personal wealth is 3,800 crores. Is that a big cost for sustaining democracy in a country like India?
All right, okay.
So
Lots of points. Let's try and go through that, Mr. Sappal. Dr. Paswan, firstly, quite apart from what Mr. Sappal said, there's the entire issue of 5 constitutional amendments which also need to be cleared. Where do you have the numbers in, in the Rajya Sabha, for example, or state assemblies to push all of this through?
Oh, see, Vishnu, we have to understand that one nation, one election has been in discussion for the last 4.5 decades. For the first time it was discussed, this was 1982 during Madam Indira Gandhi's term. So it is not a new idea. We have seen 170th Law Commission report. We have seen a parliamentary standing committee report under the leadership of a very senior Congress leader, Mr. EMS Sudarshan Nachiyappan, who categorically said that one election, one nation, one election is an idea whose time has come. Now, listening to the concerns of the senior Congress leader, I have to respond that when you say it's a balloon, 10 years ago, precisely 10 years ago from now, Manmohan Singh, the then Prime Minister, used to say that the biggest threat to internal security is left-wing extremism. And there was no solution in sight. But today we are at a point where left-wing extremism is completely or more or less eliminated. Similarly for Ram Mandir and similarly for...
No, but how will you get this passed? It's a simple question.
I'll respond to that. That's a wrong assumption.
When you say, Vishnu, I think it's my turn. Vishnu, I think it's my turn.
I'm only asking for time.
No,
I'm not interrupting.
Mr. Sapal,
Vishnu,
let's not interrupt. Dr. Paswar, you haven't answered my question. Will you answer my question? How will you get it passed?
I'm coming to your question. No, there were some allegations, Vishnu ji, from the Congress party that it is a balloon, it's a sham.
Okay.
So I cannot let it go unanswered. That is point number one. Point number two, we have majority. The NDA government is 293 sort MPs in the Lok Sabha. And in the coming years, we'll see a majority in Rajya Sabha as well. We passed the GST. GST required the ratification by states. And we saw the consensus building process during the passing of GST. Almost all the state legislative assemblies, without any doubt, passed the GST, and we saw a massive, remarkable reform happening for the first time in the country. That is point number one. Point number two, you also asked a question about cost cutting and what happens to the remainder of the term. The Kovind committee, Vishnu, has consulted almost all the political parties. On board, there were 47 political parties. 32 political parties are in agreement of the idea of one nation, one election. The rest of the 15 political parties, they disagree with the idea. Apart from that, it was open for citizens' discourse. Yes. 21,558 citizens participated. Out of the 21,000, 80% people are in favor of this idea. We can no longer suggest this. The policy paralysis, we very well remember UPA 2 era, the last couple of years, policy paralysis was the flavor of the season. One election, another election, so policy were never used to imagine or policy were never used to get implemented. But this time, we have seen that how one nation, one election will sort of give a boost to administrative efficiency, policy continuum, and cost effective as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Just hold on for a second. Nija has been waiting patiently. Nija, do you believe that the BJP has played its cards right, that along with its NDA partners, they will be able to actually get this through?
I think it'll be very difficult. BJP has played its card, of course, it's been part of its manifesto in the last two elections, 24 and 19 before it. So it's been committed to it. And as far as the numbers go, it looks difficult. Almost a little more than 70 less in the Lok Sabha to two-thirds majority and over 50 less in the Rajya Sabha. As things stand, it is going to be difficult. But they're talking about 2029. And I'm reminded of the Women's Reservation Bill, which was passed with great fanfare, giving one-third representation to women in parliament and legislature, but linking it to delimitation. Now, delimitation is going to be a hotly contested issue. And it's not going to be easy. Probably go to court. The southern states are very agitated. It will be pushed to 2029, maybe 2034. So yes, today it's a big bang announcement that we're moving towards it, but it's going to be a rocky path. But I want to say, there are pros and cons. Of course, there's the whole issue of policy. Things get, Prime Minister said, it's very disruptive. Money, I would not make as a very important factor because we cannot weigh our democracy against money. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, tomorrow we'll make a case, 2.4 lakhs per minute being spent on parliament, disruptions all the time, shut shop there. We cannot, have that kind of argument. But most important, if I'm to be the devil's advocate, most important hit will be accountability. The legislators will not be on their toes. And if you go out on the street and talk to ordinary people, you know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you, अभी तो हमारे पास आते हैं, प्रॉमिस करते हैं, कुछ वायदे पूरे नहीं होते, दोबारा आते हैं तो हम पूछते हैं उन वायदों का क्या हुआ, हाँ करेंगे. And they are under pressure. Once they are not, it is 5 years Nobody is going to question them. They cannot be toppled. They are not going to look at us at all. That is the ordinary person's concern. Therefore, I think it needs a greater consultative process. As I say, there are pros and cons, but those parties, and 15 parties have already come out against it, they need to get back on board, because everybody is for the country. It's not that people don't want what's best for the country to take place.
Sure.
But I think greater consultative process needs to take place.
Dr. Amin, one of the points mentioned by the opposition, this is the point raised by the Trinamool Congress, is that it's against the spirit of a truly democratic and federal nation, that it's against the structure of what we have come to accept as acceptable and useful. How would you respond to that?
Everything depends on the constitution. And if anything passed by the parliament, that goes to again for the security of the CGI, for their concern from the Supreme Court of India. But in case of the Election Commission of India, Election Commission of India needs 2 or 3 years for the infrastructure. They are ready for the poll. So this is talking about the 29, not from today. So we have enough time for the preparation of the election side and Election Commission side. So Election Commission is not worried about that. But first the Parliament has to pass the bill, and all the sectors, they can clear it. From the last is the Supreme Court of India, there is scrutiny that will be done. Then this will be implemented in the country.
All right. I wanted to go across to Mr. Suppal. I'm just going to go through 2 or 3 points which the BJP says, are in its, why the BJP says that this has to go through. Firstly, frequent elections create an atmosphere of uncertainty. Simultaneous polls enhance a focus on governance. It prevents policy paralysis. Dr. Paswan was talking about that. Conducting elections to all 3 tiers of the government would avoid disruption of supply chains and production cycles. Also, migrant workers moving back and forth is problematic. We have millions of migrant workers. There'd be higher economic growth if you synchronize elections because of the stability that it would ensure. And there's something called voter fatigue, which we've not spoken about, that people perhaps would like to get the elections over with. I know you disagree with that, but it is an argument. Would you like to respond, Mr. Suppal?
I'll answer to all of these, but one quick comment on Mr. Guru Prakash, because BJP has a habit of flipping it wrong facts. He said that BJP ended the left-wing terrorism. Mr. Guru Prakash, in 2009, when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh made this statement, 180 districts were affected with left-wing terrorism. By 2014, it was reduced to 70. And 2022, it is still 70 districts, out of which 25 are most affected.
Okay, let's talk about elections.
I'll come to other point, because I wanted to correct the record. Now, the issue is,
Dr. Paswan, I'll come back to you later, but let's stick to the focus. Let's talk about this.
There are 2-3 things. If you link policy paralysis...
In a moment, Mr. Suppal, go ahead.
My simple question is, has there been a policy paralysis in Modi government in last 10 years? I think they will not agree, because they say that there's no policy paralysis. So it means frequent elections are not the reason for policy paralysis. Or you accept on this TV that there is a policy paralysis for last 10 years of Modi government, and this is the reason for that. No, that's not the reason. Number 2, the issue of voter fatigue is also wrong. Election after election, we are seeing increasing voting percentage. Year after year, the voting percentage is going up. So there is no voter fatigue as borne out by the data. And the third thing that you said, that this entire issue of economic growth versus elections, I think it's a false narrative. It's wrong to equate economic growth with elections, because elections are the very basis of democracy. So these are the wrong arguments being put out by BJP. My point is very simple, that how will you pass the bill? You don't have numbers. You say you did consultation, 21,000 people were consulted. Yes, consultations were also done for Agniveer. All the RSS people were asked for their opinion. They gave the opinion. And what happened to Agniveer Yojana?
Mr. Suppal, hold on. Dr. Paswan.
So this consultation is not the real consultation.
Okay, 1 second. So I'm running out of time.
Parties. They are not small parties.
Yeah, Mr. Suppal, you have exactly, Dr. Paswan, you have only 1 minute to answer. Please finish in that time. Yeah.
UPA 96 districts, left-wing extremism, NDA less than 40%. So I think this is the data by the Ministry of Home Affairs. You can go and check. Point number 1. Point number 2, Vishnu, we must understand one thing. Sir, last 1 minute, let's have a civil debate. Vishnu, the most important takeaway of today's cabinet decision, which we are not talking about exactly, is that within a span of 100 days, there will be elections for the local self-government. It was the Congress party. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, said that the democratization and decentralization of power is very important, which came through the 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment. But Vishnu, are you aware of the fact? I come from Bihar. Under Laluji's tenure for 30 years, for 30 years, there were no elections to local self-government. Where is the devolution of power? Where is the decentralized decision-making? There is nowhere in sight. And even today in Maharashtra, there are 27 municipal polls which are without any elected representative. So one nation, one election, or the idea of simultaneous election has much broader implications beyond Lok Sabha and beyond Vidhan
Sure.
Sabha election. It
All
also
right.
categorically includes local self-government, which is the wheels of democracy. On the shoulder of which the democracy runs, it is the panchayats,
All
the
right.
urban local bodies,
Okay,
and the
Dr.
Nagar
Paswan,
Palika.
let's see what finally happens, how this is going to go through. Lots of pros and cons. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us.